Okay, we're live. This is just a brief chat about France's chart. If you look back on my previous blogs, I think around March last year, I did a full analysis of the chart of France. Now, France has Aries rising to Libra. Date of birth is 6 October 1958 for the Fifth Republic. What's interesting now is that France has Moon in Cancer in the fourth house and at 21 degrees, which is about to be by Pluto in Capricorn, which is moving to 20 degrees of Capricorn. So it's in opposition. That, I think, is not only what's triggering this, it's the moon in Cancer represents a groundswell of grassroots opinion. It represents the public. The fact that it's being opposed from Pluto in the 10th house reflects this conflict between those in power and the public. And those in power, the 10th house where Pluto is, have this plutocratic arrogance about them. And they've been ignoring the needs of the people. So because France is an Aries rising country, it shows this kind of passion they have, they're very spirited, passionate people. Mars in the second house there, they have a great sense of pride in their country, in their values, and they are a country that are prepared to look towards violence as a means of political activism. So Pluto, as you know, is going to conjunct with Saturn at 22 degrees of Capricorn. That's going to strongly trigger Moon in France's fourth house. And so this discontent you see with people, it's not going to go away. It's going to be present throughout the whole of next year. It is festering, rumbling. The fact that Pluto is involved means it's been going a longer time. There's a great buildup. And because there's such a massive buildup of emotion, anger, frustration, and just people feeling that they're not being listened to, it's going to take a lot to suppress this. It's going to be very, very hard to suppress it. Now, what I also see happening, though, is that Saturn, which is in the 9th house in Sagittarius of France and rules the ascendant in Capricorn, is being triggered by various different things, but one of them is by the solar arc moon. So that says to me that there's going to be a clampdown. I don't really see them as via these protests being to dislodge Macron. I think he might use martial law. I think he'll use changes in the law. I think he'll use crackdowns on social media. I think he's going to try and do anything he can to quash this. So we're going to see quite a struggle between an increasingly authoritarian government in France trying to suppress an increasingly angry and frustrated public. And that's going to be the play in France. So, I think Macron is going to cling on there because I think he feels a sense of greater entitlement in terms of the whole EU project. He feels that with the demise of Angela Merkel in terms of her popularity and going out of her party, he feels he's going to step up and take that mantle. He is going to now be the figurehead of the EU, the one to push through all their plans and to kind of control everything. So I don't see him going anywhere. Now, there's a kind of interesting thing going on in France's chart. There is a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in their 7th house. Now, this Jupiter-Neptune cycle has been always very prevalent in France's history. Every time there's an angle between Jupiter and Neptune, something kind of happens in their chart. However, the actual aspect in their chart, every time it's been triggered, nothing has really happened. The only thing I can highlight is when that aspect got triggered was when they ended up with having because they have a president and a prime minister. They had a right-wing president and a left-wing prime minister, or it was the other way around, but there was basically a split. That was the last time that aspect was activated. But every other time it was activated, there's nothing really indicated that was going on in France. It wasn't the 68 riots or anything. So that aspect is going to be, hi guys, hi, nice to see you all back. Yeah, it will help Ken. I wonder if there could be some future where she becomes the president but the rest of the country still under a kind of socialist prime minister, something like that. I don't think there's going to be any change for another 3 years when there's an election, basically. So Macron's not easily going to be dislodged. So the thing I think is because the 7th house is the house of kind of treaties, relationships with other countries, trade, whatnot. I see Jupiter there as being the wealthy countries in the EU, like Germany and the UK, Neptune being the former Eastern Bloc countries, and it shows France is strongly aligned with them. But with that aspect in the 7th house being activated so strongly by both Pluto, Mars, and there's some other planet that was activating it as well, I think France is becoming absolutely immersed in this EU project. It's like a drug for that country. So I see one of the main themes for this year is France not only taking leadership in the EU project, but getting more and more involved. I mean, you've heard Macron talking about more migration, more integration, and they were saying in the EU Parliament, we need to take away more sovereignty from the country. So in that way, I feel France, on the government level, is running away from them very quickly towards the EU, and this public discontent is going to be dealt with quite harshly as the government becomes a lot more authoritarian. So it's not like, this is what I'm seeing from France's chart. I'm not sure if France is actually such a good chart to do predictions from. I think I need to experiment with some of the other charts because this is quite a weak one. But if you look back at France's history since 58, apart from letting the colonies go, there hasn't really been an awful lot for us to look back on to see key moments. So the main thing has been this thrust towards more of the EU. So I think this is a total surrender in terms of France. Another thing is France are eyeing up London's financial services. That's Mars being triggered in their second half. They're going to make a major push after Brexit to get London's financial services away. They've had their eye on it for a long time, and now they're going to pounce. So I'm not sure if they'll be. Yeah, Macron is a banker, bought and paid from. He's a Rothschild. Oh, I agree, totally. I said it when I did his chart. I think you can still look back to where I did Macron's chart. He's totally controlled. He's a puppet. You know, what I find crazy is I have some friends who should know better, who are like politically aware, and they said to me, oh, you know, Macron's a fresh face. I mean, didn't he come from nowhere? And I thought, how naive are these people? First of all, you don't vote for a politician because they have a fresh face, do you? You know, you vote on their policies and on the kind of character they have. First of all, no one comes in politics from nowhere. He was part of Hollande's government. He was in the finance ministry, wasn't he? All he did was take up the mantle from Hollande, who had a massively poor 4% wasn't his approval rating. So Macron takes over. And again, the French people were conned. I remember back when Hollande got elected, there was like so excitement in France, especially with the younger people. They thought, yeah, this is it. You know, we've got a nice guy now. He's going to sort us out. And what happened? You know, within a very short time, he was massively unpopular. And then they go and vote for Macron, who's exactly a Hollande Mark II. Didn't they see that? Didn't they see his past, where he came from? How on earth did they think he was going to be different? He was obviously a globalist. But of course, people were scared. More middle of the road voters would probably have been scared of voting for Marine because, of course, in the mainstream media, they freak out about Marine, just like they freak out about Tommy. This is the worst person. You know, they Nazis. They slap every label on them to kind of, you know, scare people from voting in that direction. So that's it's only really a brief prediction for France. We can come back and discuss that situation more, but this is going to rumble on for the whole of next year. But watch for more laws. France pushing through a raft of laws to try and quell this. Yeah, public are distracted. But you can't really blame people because there's more to life. There should be more to life than politics. But I think the problem is, well, we all took our eye off the ball of politics. You know, they were doing their own thing. We should have been paying closer to attention. But the great thing about it, do you realize how much power we are still having through the ballot box, through Brexit, in Germany, where they're voting, Italy, with the way they're voting, there still is power through the ballot box. And therefore, we have to use it and maybe become more politically involved in joining political parties. Okay, end stream, and then we're going to talk about something a little bit different.